A couple of weeks ago, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson introduced a new physical competition show called the Titan Games that he is both producing and hosting. And the show went in with much fanfare and anticipation from yours truly. However, once I started watching the show, I feel left kinda disappointed. But anyway, hello, my name is William from 222 Productions, and I am here to talk to you about my early impressions of The Rock's The Titan Games. Starting now. So, I'm not going to go episode per episode, all the little details. I'm just going to give you my general thoughts of what I'm thinking about this show so far. To give you an idea, right now, The Titan Games is scheduled to be a 10-episode series with the first 4 episodes airing so far. The first 2 episodes were put together in a 2-hour event during week 1, and since we have 2 more weeks, so we are 4 episodes in so far of the 10. The way the show works is that every episode, 4 men and 4 women enter their own separate tournaments to try to become that episode's Titans. The way it works is that there are 4 preliminary events, which will feature 2 women going against each other and 2 men going against each other. And each of them will have to compete in a random, well, not necessarily random, in a different event assigned to them by The Rock. Except it's not completely different, and I'll explain that in a minute. Basically, the winner of each event moves on to the final round of the episode to take on Mount Olympus. So each episode for each gender is a 4-person single elimination tournament. Whoever wins Mount Olympus earns the title of Titan, and that person will go on to the finale with the 7 other Titans for the big Battle of the Titans competition, which, for me, I am personally disappointed it's not called Clash of the Titans, but I understand why they can't do that. So it appears that the last 2 episodes are going to be the grand finale based on, math and what they've said so far, because it was advertised as a 10-episode series. One of the things is that the events are inspired, according to The Rock, by his workout regimens, as well as stuff that he came up with while he was drunk. He mentioned that last part in an interview with, I believe, Newsweek. And so these are big, extreme physical fitness competitions that have a big emphasis on strength overall. And remember when I first saw the intro, I had this feeling that it was like some sort of extreme American version of Pro Sportsman #1. And that's, I wouldn't say that's completely accurate, but you can kind of see some of the ideas. So when I went to this show, I went in with a lot of hope, a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. I was looking forward to this show, and the first episode, I would say overall, was really riding high. But when they got to the second half of that 2-episode premiere, that's when things started to really wane for me, and I was kind of like, it's not as good as I hoped. And it's one of those things where, kind of after watching episodes 3 and 4, my excitement has been going there's been moments where I'm like, oh hey, this is cool, and there's moments where oh hey, this is not cool. And so I think it really just comes down to what events are played, because for me personally, the events are a bit of a mixed bag, and the unfortunate reality is that this show's pacing is very slow to my liking, like very slow. I've criticized A&W sometimes for being a bit too slow in the regionals with the profiles, but this show has such a big focus on profile pieces because there's only 6 events, and sometimes they can't fit all the events, which is a big problem. In episodes 2 and 4, one of the 6 competitions got digested. They got fast forward. They just they showed you the highlights and the results. And I just remember watching that and just being like, you guys really don't have an excuse, in my personal opinion. You should be able to fit all 6 events in an hour-long episode. And so to have a situation where one of these events doesn't even get shown in full is very annoying, quite frankly, because I want to see the events. Furthermore, what was also weird is that if memory serves me correct, in both instances, the person who won the digested event actually went on to win Mount Olympus in that episode. So it created this weird scenario where it's like, I thought the other person was going to win, especially the first time. I thought the other person was going to win because their event was actually shown. But it turns out, oh no, the person whose first round wasn't shown in full actually ended up winning. And it's just like, what? It's like, oh, let's watch the person who we barely know anything about. It's so bizarre. It kind of reminds me of like this one episode of Wipeout. It's this one joke that I remembered where it's like, it was the second round. There's only one spot open left, and it was two people who were like vying for the last spot, realistically. And John, was it Hammond? Anyway, one of the hosts was like, "Oh, who's going to win? Is it going to be this guy, or is it going to be this person who we've never talked about at all up to this point?" And yeah, they were like, "Oh, hey, it's the person we were talking about in the editing in the first round and all that." Which is a funny joke, but it also kind of highlights the sort of issues with like editing, where it's like, you know, it makes things more obvious. And so to see someone who got digested make it to the next round is surprising. Anyway, enough. So that's kind of like some of my issues with like the formatting and the pacing of the show. The Rock's the main host. There's also two commentators who do the play-by-play for the events. They're okay. I don't remember their names. He also has this woman as a sideline reporter. Again, I barely even remember anything she did. Like the other three hosts, commentators, whatever you want to call them, they're very unremarkable in my personal opinion. I just don't remember anything about them. It's all about The Rock, and that's the other thing with the pacing that kind of throws me off is that there are segments in the show where it features The Rock like mingling with the crowd. Like there's the first one where like he's doing the selfie cam, and then got segments where like he's mingling with the audience, and it's bizarre because like it would make sense if they had to fill time, but like you're skipping events, and so it's this weird thing. And also, the other thing I want to mention that's just really annoying, to me at least, is that they keep calling The Rock DJ. And, like, here's the thing. I get his name is Dwayne Johnson. But, like, outside of this event, the show, I have never heard anyone refer to The Rock as DJ. I've seen him referred to as Dwayne Johnson, as The Rock, as Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but never DJ. And it is so bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. But anyway, I'm just going to run down the events that we've seen so far. I know there's at least two that haven't been shown yet, so I won't be talking about those. But right now we have the Herculean Pole. This one I like. It's one of the few where so far there's only been two events where like the competitors are fighting against each other directly. All the other events have just been races, but the Herculean Pole is, you got a pole, so you got this like trapezoidal pyramid thing, and so you have to pull two poles on the bottom, and it could be you could end up grabbing one of your opponent's poles because there's four on the bottom, and then after you pull two of them out, you have to climb up and grab the golden pole on the top. And because of it's high up, you can only press up against the wall and start pulling. And if you pull the golden pole long enough, you hit your buzzer and win. And basically, the idea is that if you do the first two fast enough, you can get yourself an advantage trying to pull that final golden log. It's good. It's interesting because like you can't see your opponent, so but like it's also one of those events where like the tide can turn very quickly, because if one person falls off, that gives the other person huge advantage to start pulling in their favor. So this is definitely one of those events where the tide can turn very quickly, and that's sort of like one of the other issues that I've noticed is that like there's not a lot of instances where that could happen in the other events. And then we got the hammering ram. I really like this one. It's big, it's dumb, and that's why I like it. Basically, you got to use a hammer to hit like a switch that will release a giant swinging hammer, a battering ram that you have to swing and break open a wooden door. It's really cool because you're swinging it and you're breaking stuff, and that's the kind of things I like. This can be done really quickly. It can be done very not quickly. Because it depends on technique. Like with episode 3, I believe it was, the two guys who did the hammer ram were terrible at it. They could not figure out how to get the momentum properly, that you're supposed to grab the rope low and build up your momentum and get the swing, and it's just, it was kind of painful to watch. But when they do it correctly, it can be kind of cool to watch. The only downside is that unless your opponent doesn't understand the momentum, it's kind of hard to catch up with this one. But it's fun. And then the next one I want to talk about is Uprising. Uprising is I'm conflicted talking about Uprising because, like, on one hand, they're smashing concrete blocks, which is visually cool, but the event itself is super flawed. Basically, you are attached to a harness and you need to run and pull an anvil up a pulley and have it break through 5 layers of concrete blocks. What's weird is that the third layer of the 5 is double thick, but only the third layer, which I don't understand. Which is weird. This one, there's no strategy. It's just run fast. And ultimately, the heavier person is going to win. This is one where, like, the heavier person, the more muscular person, 100% has the advantage to win. And it's not even funny of how big of an advantage you have in Uprising for the bigger guy. And it can be completed very quickly. Like, the very first guy who won it in episode 1, I believe it was Anthony Firm, he did it in 22 seconds. And what's funny is that during his profile piece, he actually has a tattoo that says, "You're effed," except it's spelled out. Somehow ended up uncensored on NBC. Not sure how that got through. But, yeah, that was funny. So yeah, Uprising is one of those events where it's like, I like it, but it's super flawed. And the fact that it can be done in 22 seconds, it made me, that's like the first time I started being like, this pacing's kind of weird, like, in terms of like profiles and events and stuff like that. Power Vault. This one is awful. This one's so dumb. So basically, you have to use a pole vault to make over a bunch of gaps. Then you gotta lift 3 blocks to grab a different pole, make your way back, climb the pole, and then pull a lever to win the event. This one's just boring. It is the least strength inducive of all the events so far because it's actually just a lot more speed, which is bizarre. Only like really the end involves I guess the midway point I should say involves real strength because you're lifting these heavy blocks, but like it's just not interesting to watch. It's not because it's speed based, but it's still not fast paced because they have to line up the pole in like the centerpiece and then do the pole vault, and so yeah, it's not very exciting to watch. Not a fan of that one. That one's definitely toward the bottom. And then we have Cyclone. This one's cool. I want to see more to get a full opinion on it. But basically, you got a wrecking ball attached to a rope, dangling, and then you wrecking ball, and then the rope that you're holding onto, and you gotta build momentum with this. What is it? 60-pound wrecking ball to knock over 5 pillars that are surrounding you, and your movement's kind of limited because the wrecking ball is also attached to the ground, so you only have a limited space to work with. Visually, it looks cool just spinning them around. This is one of those events where like you actually can catch up because like it requires technique and strength and stamina and, like, I guess a little bit of luck, because I wonder how easy it is to aim. I'm not sure. I need to see more to get a more of opinion, but this is one of those ones where I'd say it's probably easier to have someone who's behind catch up than others. And then we have heavy metal, and this one I'm not a fan of either. This one's towards the bottom also with Power Vault, but like, and it has to do with the second half of the event. The first half is you got this pole on your back, and on both sides are this chain. You have to walk up this ramp. And what I like with the logic of it is that the further you go up this ramp, the more the chain lifts up from the ground, which means the more weight is on your back, which I think is from a mechanical standpoint, is very cool. One thing I noticed is that the guard railing has spokes going up on the side, so if you were to drop it, there's only a maximum amount of distance you can potentially lose while carrying the thing. But the problem is when you get to the top. When you get to the top, you have to place it in this spinning spinning wheel. You lock it in, and you have to crank the pole. And this one's kind of boring at this point because it's like you're just watching two people stand at the top spinning a wheel, spinning a crank, and that's not very interesting to watch. And basically you have to wind up all the chain, and at the end of the chain is a 100-pound weight, and you got to pull that up, and once you pull it all the way up, you win. And I have a few problems with this and with the ending of this event. Like I said, it's very boring to watch. The other thing that I noticed is that the wheels are attached to a ratchet system, which means that they can't unwind, which actually makes catch-up very hard. So if someone can just straight up let go with the weight dangling in the air, and it won't unravel at all. They don't have to worry about that. So it's kind of weird, especially because like you have, I remember there was an instance where like someone was like basically using their weight to jump on the wheel and turn it, and so it creates this strategy that would normally not exist. It makes it easier than it looks, and it makes it harder to catch up as a result. And also, I don't know, just seeing two people just standing there turning a wheel, it's not very interesting to me. And it's made less interesting because, like, as I'll discuss in a minute with Mount Olympus, that's kind of what's one of the obstacles in Mount Olympus is turning a crank, so it makes it less interesting. Then we have Lunar Impact, which is it's a pushing competition. So you got to climb up to the top of this crescent moon shaped platform, and then you got to push a wall against your opponent and force them off the platform. And so basically, whoever gets there first gets an advantage. I saw it once only. It was pretty cool. It was pretty back and forth so far the first time. This is one where catch-up is obviously very much available, and the only other true head-to-head competition when you're fighting the other person. And so I like it. It's fun so far. Tower Drop is like a giant version of Kerplunk, but kind of weird. Because, like, you got to climb this tower and pull these giant poles out from the side of the tower. And then the final pole, however, has a giant, how weight is it? 50-pound ball on top of it, which kind of jams it in place and makes it hard to pull out. It's kind of weird because, like, it's completely arbitrary, the ball. And then to make sure you don't, like, do a move where, like, you just try to, like, jump out and pull the ball out, dropping the ball releases a handle at the top that you have to climb up and then pull that down and claim victory. This one's alright. I'm not convinced on this one yet, but I could be swayed. And then we have Atlas Smash. This one I really like. Atlas Smash is you have two 350-pound stones. You're given a hammer, and you have to whack at these stones to eliminate as much weight as you can from the structure. And then you have to run back to the beginning and pull the stone up, and then do it again with the second one. I like this because, one, you're destroying something, which is always cool. And two, it creates a bit of a strategy of, like, how when do you know when to start pulling? Because you have to kind of visualize how much weight is left on this thing, which makes it cool from a strategy point, from a visual standpoint, from a strength standpoint. Are you strong enough to lift it up with little, without taking as much off? Also, I noticed is that the stone itself is on a bit of a rappel system to make it prevent you from just dropping the stone halfway, like lifting it up and dropping it and kind of breaking. So I thought that was kind of clever. And so that's all the events we saw so far outside of Mount Olympus. And so the two potential titans, compete against each other. You start the race by you gotta push a 1,000-pound wall. I saw a few camera angles. It's not literally a 1,000-pound wall. It's very clearly has like a 1,000-pound resistant actuator thing. You gotta tip it over. It only falls one way because you can see the hinge on the bottom. You tip it over. Then you gotta push up 3 gates that are 150 pounds each, up a 25-degree angle. Once you get to the top, you then have to climb 6 cylinders. So you can either run across them or go up and over each one. They're big, they're thick, and so this is like the most agility-based obstacle of Mount Olympus, and it can really trip up the bigger guys because they're not as agile, which is interesting. And then this one is interesting. You got to punch holes into this drywall wall and climb up it. One thing I really want to see is I just want to see like a rock climber make it like only do halfway of the holes and then just do a big jump to the top. I think that'd be funny. There was an instance in episode 4 where this one woman fell and seemingly hurt herself. And it was like this weird moment where she's just lying down, seemingly injured, possibly with her ankle. And it kind of brings up the question of like, should they do something? Should they help her? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Anyway, after that is a crank where you have to spin a crank. Once again, it's on that ratchet system I mentioned. It raises the torch. When the torch is lit, you got it all the way up. And then you got to make your way down 3 slides, and in between the slides are these walls you got to climb up. And then at the bottom of the slides is a ball and chain that's 250 pounds heavy. And the reason you got to pull that chain is because there's a hammer on the chain. You got to pull it, and you got to use that hammer once you get to the end of the pull zone to break a concrete tomb that contains a key. You grab the key, reach your actuator, turn the key, put the key in, turn it, and if you do that first, you are that episode's Titan and the winner. I want to say the 2 winners get $100,000 if they win. I want to say that's what they get. So yeah, Mount Olympus is interesting. It's one of those, similar to like the Eliminator in American Gladiators, in that the best races are the ones that are close. So I would recommend watching both Mount Olympus races from episode 2. They were both very close and they were both very good. I'm not going to spoil those at all, but you should watch both of those. They're quite good, and I highly recommend you watching both of those. So yeah, so like it's weird because like there's a lot of stuff that I like, but the package as a whole, something's not gelling, and I think it has a lot to do with the pacing, and some of the events are just rubbish in my opinion. So yeah, they need to figure something out with like the pacing, the editing. Don't focus so much on profiles if it means you can actually fit in all the events. And then maybe it'll be a better show. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something's not gelling. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think it's pacing that is the biggest thing. It's not a terrible show, but I'm just disappointed. I guess that's the best way to put it. I was expecting more, but I didn't get what I wanted. And it's kind of sad, but I'm still watching it. I will let you know after the show's over, after all the episodes have aired, my final thoughts on the show. It will probably be less involved as this one, because I'm not going to repeat the description of all the events and stuff like that that I talked about. But yeah, what do you guys think? Am I alone in this? Do you like Titan games? Are you disappointed like I am, or do you just straight up hate it? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe for more videos talking about obstacle courses and Ninja Warrior and stuff like that, as well as original content that will be coming pretty soon. But thank you everyone for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.